performing the duty and results of performing them. The 39 to 48 introduces Karma Yoga, and then 49 to 53 talks about devotional service and about the self-realized soul. And then Arjuna asks the question in 54th chapter, tell me what are the symptoms of the self-realized soul, right? Like how does he walk, how does he talk, and all that. That's a famous verse there. Then for the rest of that chapter, Krishna goes and describes what are the description of self-realized soul, and then he talks about sense objects, how to restrain and so forth. So that's how the chapter ends. So it's a nice chapter for somebody to start reading, which gives the whole summarized content of Gita. Right, every aspect of Gita is touched there. It talks about we are not the body, we are the soul, and then so that's how, right? So if I've just picked up one word, there are several verses in there. It is still very hard to understand the slayer, slain, and there are so many things. Several verses are very difficult to understand. So that is where you get some help, or you start trying to read the purport of each of those verses slowly, right? So I thought, okay, then I took the notes that I took, and I referred to Gita Subodhini. I don't know how many of you have this book, Gita Subodhini. Then that's by His Grace Gauranga Darshan Prabhu. So if you go flip to chapter 2, he has a similar overview, right? He goes the main sections, and then each verse that relates to the section. So when I saw that, oh, okay, I read it. I also understood a high-level overview, and it is somewhat closer to what Gauranga Darshan Prabhu has also put in. So maybe that is how you have to read, and people have read it, and he has actually documented it. But then after that, imagine if I read this last year, 12 months passed, by now I should have read all the Gita, right? But I didn't do that. So I got distracted. There were other priorities. We had to travel, health issues, and Ranchor got initiated, went to India, one after the other, until this year when Purushottam month came, I started reading again, right? So, but before I go into how the three timing, relevance, necessity, and relevance, based on that, I have few verses that I'm going to talk about. So I will not be going deep. I'm not reading purports or going into each verses, but staying at a high level just to describe some situations and how certain verses really relate to me, and how that speaks to me, and how Krishna speaks to me, right? So that is the context. So here, before going there, key takeaways, right? So English translation for the whole chapter end to end, for a few days until you get the overview, recognize the flow, and identify the patterns. Almost this applies. I've started reading chapter 12, chapter 15, chapter 7. Everywhere you can easily write down notes on how the conversation happens, how the flow happens, where is the break, where is the subsection of it, and how one verse is related to the next verse. So you can easily find out the patterns in there, right? So basically we need to do that, right? So and don't worry if you are not comfortable with reading Sanskrit the very first time. You just read the English translation. For Sanskrits, you can always listen to YouTube videos where there are a lot of recitations, and then you can follow along, and then eventually you will get to be able to read at least, right? So not only memorizing, it's just starting to read is the first step. Then you can start reading the purports, and if available, read in groups, like Friends in the Prabhu has groups, and several of the devotees here have daily reading groups. Read with them. Write down your own flowchart, right, in your own words. Take down notes, understand what is your realization, and write it down. And then verify that or cross-reference that with Gauranga Darshan Prabhu's Gita Subodhini. And then also, then you listen to the YouTube lectures, right? Like for me, I was doing the opposite. I would just go listen to the lectures. It doesn't stick. It sticks, right? So you get some context, it sticks. But then if you have actually read the Gita and then go back to listen to the lectures, then it's a different taste or different observation, different experience there, right? So So that is why that is the last point, right? Like systemic study versus listening for inspiration, right? So you always pick up something for systemic study. You allocate like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or 30 minutes every day for yourself to read, for systemic study to make progress. And then you can obviously listen something related to what you studied or things that are going to be inspiring. So these are some of the key takeaways that I want to share. And so let's start going through some of the verses, right? So I do have some medical conditions, not going into the details, but there are secondary conditions that cause issues with my digestion, right? And I used to struggle a lot, right? I cannot even eat and so forth. So during Purushottam month, myself, Ramtikta Prabhu and everybody were reading this chapter 15 over and over again, right? Like first 10 days, 15 days, I was like struggling to read Sanskrit. I was reading English translation and all that until I hit this verse. 15:14, right? So it says, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashita Prana Samayukta Pachami Annam Chaturvidam. Right? So I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities. I join with the air of life, outgoing, incoming, to digest the four kinds of food stuff. So that's the first verse I would say in the whole of Gita. There are several verses I have heard, I have listened, it make relationship connections, but this is the straight verse. It just stuck me, right? So, thank you. So this is where, right, it's an individual experience, right? Like, so I've been struggling with this, but here it is, like Krishna is saying, right? Just think about me. This is an opportunity for me to remember Krishna all the time, right? So that's when, like, when I offer, I recite this verse. I'm going to have this prasadam. Please help me to digest. When I eat, I say this verse, right? And when I feel dull or my stomach is heavy and it's hard, I tell this verse, right? Don't ask me because of this verse I am all right, right? That's not the point. The point is the consciousness, right? The point is remembering Krishna, that recognizing that it's so simple. Like, you are not able to digest. You think you are the controller, but you are not. Krishna needs to be there to help you with that, right? So this is the verse that really helps me to just to think about Krishna and the relevance in it, right? So speaking of offering, the next verse, I think everybody knows it's a very common verse, but there is a lot of relevance that I found over a period of time, right? What verse is that? It is Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayachiti Tataham Bhakti Upahritam Ashnami Prayatmana, right? So what is the key word here, right? If you offer me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Right? So it seems very simple, right? Anybody can do this, right? It's a small 4 things, right? There's leaf available, flowers available, water is available, fruits are available, and we make apulam prasad, boha and offer, right? So I've been doing this for a few years now, but what's the connection, right? The key word is with love and devotion, right? I didn't have the love or I didn't have the devotion. So you just go do it as a duty, right? And in the morning, if you see our house, it's just a crazy randomness, right? Like we'll cook one dish, go offer, we'll be cooking the other one, we'll go offer. We'll cook the breakfast, then we'll cook the lunch, and then Krishna ji will be doing that and other things, right? It'll be even hot. And we will be just joking. Don't worry, Krishna has eaten the forest fire. He should be able to eat our hot food, right? Just cook it. And that is what our interaction, our experience in offering. We don't stand there, say all the prayers and offer. Then over a period of time, we said, okay, Ranchor Arkiti, you are doing better than us, so you do the offerings, right? So they do the offering most of the time, and so forth, right? So we do offer leaves when we offer we have tulasi at our home. When we pick up the leaf, it's a distraction, right? Like, oh, the leaf has mildews, it has spider, it's not growing well, right? So that is what our thought process is there, right? Like, and I also noticed that all the offerings that we do, we expect something back from Krishna, right? We say, Boha, it becomes prashadam because it gets sanctified. Now there's an expectation that, okay, now I'm eating karma-free food, so I'm not accumulating karma, right? And then there is water, you drink it, it purifies you, leaves. Right? So there's always something that you are expecting, right? So for me, when there is a love or devotion, there needs to be a heart, right? There's heart is involved in it, and then you're not expecting anything from it, right? You're just giving it, right? You're giving, you're not expecting anything. So the one connection that I found was the flower, right? So a few years ago, we started growing dahlias in our home. So one day I thought, okay, these dahlias are so nice. Why don't we just take and give it to Radhanath, right? So, and the time Nitachan Prabhu was here, I just gave it to him. Okay, why don't you offer, right? So I didn't know that he was going to offer. That time it was already Sunday feast. So, and then I stood here for the arati. So I could see he had kept the dahlia in Radhanatha's hand. So right now on the left hand there is the chamra, whatever that is, right? So there was something that he had taken that and he had put the flowers there. It was the first time it was a great sight for me to see the joy there. Wow, Radha has accepted my offering, right? Generally the understanding is when you offer to Krishna, you don't directly offer to Krishna, you give it to Radha. Radha accepts and tells to Krishna, here is your devotee, he has come and offered you flowers, right? Now take it, right? Radha takes it and then gives. So that was really good connection for me. And then that is what, for me, like subsequent years, we started growing more dahlias. And every time we drive inside the home, we say, oh, the flowers are ready, now we need to take to the temple, right? And there are Matajis here who encourage us, bring dahlias and all. So there was one day, our wish was like, okay, we want to see the whole altar with dahlias. And if you see this picture, this was the last time that we offered this season. Almost every single deity had our dahlias, right? So Radha's both the hands had dahlia there, and so this was a good sight for us to see that however impurities we have, however insincere we are, and trying hard, but at least there is some reciprocation from the Lordship. Right? So here there is no expectation. I'm not asking the flowers back. I'm not going to take it and do something with it. It is just with some amount of love that there is an eagerness to do it. Right? So that's the connection I thought I have here. And even I got an opportunity to take dahlias to New Vrindavan and offer to the deities as well. So that's the specific connection on this. And the next one is taste of water, right? So how many of you have heard this verse, right? Like Amarendra Prabhu's story, right? He was 10 years old. Obviously, he was going to school, and the teacher in the school was teaching water doesn't have any taste. Right? He raises his hands up and says, who says that? You read Gita, Krishna says, I am the taste of water. Right? So anyway, the teacher calls the parents and they have a conversation and the story goes by like that. Because he was 10, but he was already in great association, he was reading and he knew all the scriptures by then, right? So he had the courage to stand up. Right? So I heard the story, that was like 3 or 4 years ago, 2018 or so, right? I was not so inspired, I was still coming and going. I was like, didn't make any connection. I drink a lot of, generally I don't drink a lot of water, and even doesn't connect the taste, I don't feel it. And even if it is like, there's different kind of taste, like in India, if you go there, they will say you have to boil the water, cool it and drink. Have you done that? Doesn't taste. Right here in US, you have cold water, right? And my kids, they just drink directly from the fridge, or they put ice and drink, like all that. So we always like, okay, this taste of water is um, what is how do we connect to that, right? Like, so this is the verse, right? Rasoham apsuru kaunteya prabhasmi shashi shuryaha pranava sarva vedeshu sabdahi paurusham nushu, right? O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in mind. So, why is this connecting to me now? Right? So, again, going back to my personal story, for my health, one of the treatment is I have to take a medicine that just makes me so thirsty. Right? So thirsty that constantly have to drink water. Right? So when you're already dry and you just get a drop of water, that's when you will see the taste. That's when I realized this is what Krishna meant. What is that? I am the taste of water. So every time I am so dry and thirsty, I grab to drink water, I remember. So this is what Krishna meant, right? So the further realization in this is like when everything is going fine and you're normal and casual, nothing happens, you really don't pay attention, right? You don't recognize that you have taste, but those are all covered with opulence and all the things that are going well in your life and things like that. But when you are put in a situation that is a stimulus, a constant stimulus, then that triggers you to recognize or aware that, okay, I need to go closer to Krishna, right? So that is why Krishna puts, I didn't say Krishna puts, that's how the nature is organized, right? Like people always get some trouble here and there. Somebody has frequencies differ. But normally if you see in India or anywhere, right, even us, me, right, when there's a more a problem, we go to pray. And then when the problem goes down, we're like, go back to normalcy. Yeah. So that's what I found, right? Like there should be a constant stimulus for me in my life to really taste or to recognize that I have the taste. And you can either remember that through difficulties like Kunti Maharani, he says like when Krishna is about to leave, he says, give me more trouble, give us more problems, because if then Krishna is always with them and they can remember, right? So likewise, the more inspiration you get and more stimulus you have, then you are always trying to remember Krishna, right? So this is a verse that really connected with me most recently, and I always try to remember Krishna because of that, right? Like these are all simple things that you don't need to go out of the box, right? Everything that you do day in and day out, like you're offering prasadam, you're honoring prasadam, you're eating, you can remember that Krishna is the one who is helping you with digestion. You're drinking water all the time, you can remember there is a taste factor there, right? So you can stimulate this constant stimulation by just having regular habits of strong devotee association, right? Like constant reading and hearing that continues to have that stimulation to always make you remember that, right? Like, and also develop the taste for the holy name and so forth. So the next one, Krishna knows our future. So how many of you are familiar with this, right? Sri Radha Mataji. So I'm going to say a few things. So this is a sample like birth chart, right? Everybody wants to know their future. Everybody is anxious to know about their future, right? So they want to know, right? One thing or other about their kids, about their health, about their wealth, prosperity. Do I need to buy a home here? Can I buy a new car? Wedding, anything. You're always anxious, right? And you want to go to an astrologer and find out what's going to happen now, right? And then ultimately, what does the astrologer does most of the time? He asks you to go do this parihara or this prayer, right? If it's a health-related issue, go to Shiva temple. If there is something that you want to do, you just say, oh, go to Ganapati or do Navagraha, right? So I'm not saying those things are wrong. That's an experience that everybody has, right? Everybody does that. And growing up, I was just doing that. My parents, myself, right? Like, they just say, oh, you have some issues, now go to Narayana temple, Vishnu temple, offer hibiscus and pray, right? Now you are sick. My parents, everybody, they had a lot of health issues. Oh, you go do Annadhanam there. You go to the Shiva temple. We have gone to every single stalam or the dham in South India, right? My native place is Kumbakonam. So I don't know whoever knows that place. There are 34 Divya Desams there. Just one city you go, there are thousands of temples, and every planet personified demigod temple is there for Shani, and every temple you go, right? So we have gone to all of them, right? So that is how we grew up, and that's how most of us are still today. And I've tried to resist that for the past few years. I always have my astrologer in WhatsApp. Right? I call him, and like New Year happens, and I'll say, okay, tell me what happens this year. Right? My daughter, my son, how will their education be? What will they do? Right? So, but then in Gita, Krishna says, I know everything. I know the past, present, and the future. And Krishna is your well-wisher. Right? Why do you have to be anxious? Right? So if you are sincere and pure devoted, Krishna is taking care of his devotees. He knows what is going to happen for you in the future, and he's going to make arrangements for it, right? If there are things that are going to happen bad, so be it. Sometimes it's going to be bad, it's good for you. Or he can accelerate things, he can soften things, he can change the course. It all depends upon how directly you are connected, right? So three verses before Krishna says this, right? Like, but so what happens is, as astrologer, you go to a demigod and you offer puja. But you read this verse, right? Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtain his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. So where does the power for those demigods come to bestow the relief that you are getting, right? So if you are already praying to Krishna, you're already chanting, you're already trying to perform devotional service, can't we just reduce our anxiety? I am trying, right? I'm trying. I would say, like, it's been like 2 to 3 years now. I was this close to reach out. I was going to text, then I withdrew. My astrologer, no. I have to put my faith. I have taken shelter. I have to put my faith on my Gurudev and Prabhupada and Krishna. So, but then that doesn't leave us, right? Like one day, a few weeks ago, some Mataji, after like 2 to 3 years, she calls her. And they were just talking like this, and they says, oh, do you know there is one great devotee in Vrindavan? He's an astrologer. You go show him your chart. He will tell you based on what were you thinking in the previous life when you died, and then based on that he's going to tell you all his future and how you are going to progress in your spiritual path. Like, wow, this is not leaving us. There's always some temptation that to do. Maybe at some point I'll do, because for me, going through all that is more anxious. It's just not going through. Like if we have been doing that, like when Rahul was going through his college or whatever it is, we would have gone to them 100 times, right? Oh, tell us what college he's going to go, right? So ultimately, it's Krishna's plan. It's going to be executed, right? Like even we were thinking that he would probably go to some other schools and stuff like that. Krishna's plan was for him to be at OSU. He's here, right? Looking back, it's a wonderful plan, right? Probably we were not happy in the beginning, but we did a lot of things with him together. We hosted Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj because Rahul was here, Ranchod was here, right? Ranchod had a debate with him in the Conscious OSU program. And we have done doing a lot of things with him, and he's also helping in the OSU preaching programs, right? He's a co-president. He's doing wonderful things. He's going on book distribution by himself, and he's a great inspiration to Kirti, right? So he was not there yesterday, but this youth jam happens every Saturday with Aishishika Prabhu. Kirti logs in and joins, and she's in the whole class, and she doesn't chant, but she's reading, listening, and she knows how to play flute. Now she's playing. She doesn't do kirtan, but she does Hare Krishna mantra on the flute, right? So we thank every day for Krishna's plan for him to be with us, right? Probably for another 2 to 3 years, then he will go, right? But by the time that foundation would be there for Kirti, then he will take his journey, right? Now Ranchor is in India. He's with my sister, and then next week he's going to Mayapur with Vaishishika Prabhu's yatra. Right? So just let Krishna do his plans. Right? So don't be anxious. I'm not telling for everybody to be like that. It's just lesson for me, right? So just don't be anxious. Be confident that Krishna is going to take care of you. Last 10 minutes. This is a common verse in 15, 16, and 17. This was the first set of verse I was introduced in Krishna consciousness 4, 5 years, 6 years ago. I was sitting there, Premalas Prabhu was giving this class. He was talking about Chaturvida Bhajante Mam, Jana Sukritino Arjuna, Artho Jignashur, Artharthi, Jnanisha, Bhartarashu. Right? So 4 kinds of people who come to me. And then I went home and said, okay, let me read the previous verse. And there says 4 kinds of people who don't come to me. Oh, I've been like that. Right? I was like, maybe the lowest of the mankind or something like that. And then the following verse, it says, of these, the one who is full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best, for whom I am very dear to him and he is dear to me. Right? Obviously, 6 years ago, I didn't make any connection to this verse, right? So, what is devotional service? So, Krishna is partial still, right? Like, he says that there are 4 people who don't come to me, there are 4 people who come to me, and then out of that, has some people who he is very dear to him, right? So that's just the understanding of immaturity at that point of time. So this goes on, and then you go to verse 12, where devotional service, like who is very dear to Krishna, right? So verse 13 to 19, every verse ends with that, right? Like Krishna says, there are 31 qualities that endure one to Krishna, and then he describes them in those 6 or 7 verses. Every verse ends to like, is very dear to me, is very dear to me, very dear to me, and finally he says very dear to me as well. Reading this again and again, you really start getting that understanding what Krishna is saying. Like once you have made some progress, you read these verses, you have a different realization, right? So that's basically now you feel like this is the time, right? You need to be more serious, right? It's repeatedly said in multiple places, like devotional service is the best path to go closer to Krishna, because Krishna also reciprocates if you are very well devoted, right? So not that we have all these qualities, but we can try to at least recognize those qualities that we have to aspire to either develop. So this is what Klakanta Prabhu said once, that don't try to develop these qualities, right? These qualities will appear automatically if you perform devotion service. Don't try to fake, right? Like don't try to be like, oh, you are so humble, you are so like, so those things won't really last. But if you are really practicing your bhakti, your devotional service and so forth, these qualities will automatically, slowly manifest. So that is where you will see yourself that you are making progress, right? So, then the last one is, now who is very, very dear to Krishna? So we saw who is dear to Krishna, then who is very dear to Krishna, and there is a verse that really struck me was, 12:20, right? The last verse of the 12th chapter, right? Etu dharmam taramidam yatoktam parupasate shraddadhana matparama bhaktaste ative me priya, right? He says, like, those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. What else to say, right here? So it's reaffirmation, affirmation after affirmation, and this conclusion of that 7 to 12. This is the concluding verse of that devotional service chapter, right? So there are several places in Gita where Krishna emphasizes about devotional service, but this verse really connects to me. Like, it's just time, right? Be more serious, more try to be more conscious and learn and read and make some progress, right? So there are a lot of verses like this in Gita, perhaps. There are verses, but what I've heard in one of the lectures is, in this whole 700 verses, Krishna doesn't tell Arjuna that you need to fight to take revenge. He doesn't recollect him about the insults that happened to Draupadi. He doesn't give him recollection of all the bad things that they went through, that Duryodhana and their 100 brothers did to these Pandavas, right? There's no revenge in there. He doesn't talk about those things. He doesn't rekindle his anger by telling all this. But instead, he educates him, right? He tells him what's the right thing to do, right? And we all go through this in our life. We are in a dilemma. In a day we make 6,000 decisions, more than that. I don't know what that number is. There's always, we come to a crossroad, which path to take, right or left. If you would have taken left, you would have gone somewhere. If you take right, you would have go somewhere, right? So everywhere we are put in a situation where we have to make a decision, and this chapter 2 talks about, once you know who you are, then you will be able to make the right decision, right? If you attach yourself to the body like the doer, then your decisions are going to be like that. But then if you recognize that I am not the body, but I am the soul, then you are, how you want to make decisions during some of those situations are going to be different, right? So Chaitanya Prabhu gives an example like a judge who is a father, but his son is a criminal, right? Like, if he assumes himself as the father, how is he going to give the judgment to his son on that, right? Like, but if he is going to assume or recognize that he is a judge, then he's going to do the right thing. So that's why, like, you need to understand who we are, right? We have to identify ourselves in the right way. And so those are all the things that Gita really teaches us. And then it's up to us. We need to find time, we need to invest time to find those connections, right? Not every single 700 verses are going to connect to you, but then based on where you are in your life and your journeys, some verses are going to connect to you, certainly, right? Pick up those verses, build on it, then you start memorizing those if you want, otherwise read more about it, then expand your knowledge. So finally, this verse, right, one of the Chatushlokis, right, Tesham Satata Yuktanam Vajatam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhiyo Hamtam Enamam Payantite. So I seek your blessings and I always pray so Krishna can give me the intelligence to understand further, so that I can make some more progress and be more sincere, at least in this lifetime. So now, I know these two questions are not relevant because the audience here were all convinced, but I just wanted to know that has our impression about Gita has changed, right? Like, so it was spoken in battlefield, but is it applicable to us? The sample verses I talked about, it's applicable at least to me in my life, right? And does he speak only to Arjuna? No, he directly speaks to me, right? So that's what I want to share today. Thank you. Krishna Smaranam Prabhu ki Jai. And finished a little bit early, so if there are any questions or comments, I am not an expert. Prem Sundar Prabhu is here, so I can always phone a friend.
We have an astrologer here.
Yeah, so that's what I didn't want to say that because she offered me. Give me your chart, I can read. Like, I'm not giving it yet. So.
Very nice, Ratu. So inspiring, so touching. It was
Thank
very,
you.
very, very nice. I always have a difficult time understanding this from the verse. Lord Krishna always says that those devotees who are equipoised in distress and unhappiness are very, very dear to me, or very dear to me. But Draupadi and Arjuna, when Draupadi's 5 sons were killed, they were in so much pain, in so much distress. So what does it mean being poised in distress as well as in happiness?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I can answer in a spiritual way or not, but my take on this or my realization is as a human being, you are going to have emotions, right? It doesn't mean that you are going to turn off and be just dumb or dull and say not respond to the situation, right? Yeah, but if you are Krishna conscious, what you do during that situation is what matters, right? How long are you going to be dwelling on that, right? Are you always going to be on that for weeks, months, and not just do anything about it? Or you recognize this is material world, this is our material body, these things are bound to happen, right? It has happened to me now, is an opportunity to recognize that and then grieve for some time, but then make those negative situations to turn something positive. Approach the right people, right? So for me, right, if I didn't have Kalakanta Prabhu, I don't know how things will be for me personally, right? So I was going through a situation, there are things going on with our family as well, right? Like, so how are we handling that? We know that things are always not going to be flowery. It's always going to be so. So we try to come back to the balance sooner than taking a longer time. So that's how I see. That's how I'm trying to deal with things that are not always pleasant. Yes, Mataji.
I have one question. So this is not like what we talk about, but just in general. Like when we have a real problem, then we become very close with our Guru Maharaj.
Yeah.
Is it true? Because our Guru Maharaj is living in Bihar, and we don't have so much communication.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking how to develop that, that communication. People say, I know that they said, we should do it every month, but there is like, I'm like not any valid reason, I mean, I want to advance in spiritual life, but I don't have any very good, connection. So my question is like, when we have a real life problem, then we connect well with our Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, so it depends, right? So for me, my story is different with Kalakanta Prabhu, right? Every Sunday we have 10 to 11 Sangha, right? I have his phone number. I can email him, I can call him, I can talk to him at any time. He's responsive, right? So it's every relationship with Guru and disciple probably is different. And the way other senior devotees have answered this is like, you need to have a good Shiksha Guru here in the community, right? You can always depend on them, you talk to them, consult with them, get inspirations from them. And then there are spiritual masters who are always available online, right? Like if you see Radhanath Maharaj or everybody else, that it's just more of the Vani Seva versus Vaku Seva. Spiritual master is still there through many lectures that Bhakti Chara Maharaj, you want to hear, you can hear, right? The only thing is you cannot write to them or reach to them directly.
Because we have so much media and nowadays you have YouTube video and so much resources available. So sometimes I outtrack, I just feel like listening them than more by Guru Maharaj.
Correct. Yeah. So that's the systematic study, and I also don't listen to Kalakanta Prabhu's classes all the time, but he has very few. Right? He's not a media person. I have to go search for what classes he is giving and then try to listen. But then he has given us the opportunity to spend 1 hour with him, one on one with a small group. So we listen to him at the time. But most of the time, I spend time listening to others, right? Like get the inspiration and so forth. And that is what like Kalakanta Prabhu and others are trying to bring some change in the way our ISKCON Guru disciple system is there, right? Like recently, New Jersey Temple, Madana Gopal Prabhu, he's now officially announced to accept disciples. So GBC recently approved. So we met him at 10 o'clock, right? So Prabhupada's vision is to have like thousands and thousands of acharyas, right? So if that vision comes true, if we have spiritual masters local or in the local community, then you are going to always have that inspiration and be able to accept or reach. And there's more, I think that is more needed, right? Like the one-on-one and then the responses and relationships to grow, right? Like, it's different, right? In our family, there are 3 different spiritual masters. Each spiritual master is different, right? Giriraj Maharaj, he is the same. He is always reachable. You can reach him. Krishna Jivni always writes to him or calls him or talks. Like, now he's in India, but we need to also be respectful of their time and all. But think about Gopalakrishna Goswami Maharaj. No way. But again, the inspiration is Ranchor, he doesn't know Hindi, but after listening to his lectures, now he speaks random Hindi words, and then that's how he tries to connect with his spiritual master. And then hopefully he went to India and he's like wanting to see Maharaj, and 24th being Gita Jayanti, Maharaj is going to be in Kurukshetra, not in Delhi, but Ranchor will be in Delhi temple on the 25th and 26th, that he can see his spiritual master, right? So I think it's not like everybody has the same answer, and it depends. And I think we also have to take some our own steps. Sorry, Mataji. Okay, Prabhu. Yes, Mataji.
No question. I just wanted to comment that this was wonderful class. It was so infused with your personal realizations. I just want to thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you.